This is week 2 of our family business series, and I'm excited because I believe that this specific series is all about strengthening the families of this house. And by virtue of strengthening the families of this house, and whether, you feel like you don't maybe have family, your relationships, your friendships, your personal life, but also the family. The family that connects here week to week, that calls Kingdom Culture their home. It's a 7-week series, and it's ending in the end of October. So I'm super excited about it. Our hashtag is, everybody say hashtag. One day, we're all going to talk in hashtags. So you might as well just get ready. Hashtag with the Godfather. Everybody say with the Godfather. Because he is the Father. He's the Godfather. He's the greatest Godfather, isn't he? And he's got your back. How many know the Godfather has your back? The Godfather has your back. And I'm thankful that he's got my back, and we get to be part of this amazing church mafia called the Body of Christ, where we got each other's back, right? Come on. Okay, my message this morning is, I got your back. Everyone say, I got your back. Understanding the spirit of loyalty. Now, it's funny because the message of this week, actually, it relates to me to some degree because I really hurt my back at the gym this week, and the last 3 days I've not been able to really bend over. So I just thought it was funny because, it's like I got your back, and I'm preaching about I got your back, but it's like the gym got my back this week, and I'm having a little trouble, so I don't think I did enough stretching, or I didn't do any stretching, actually, and that's probably why, or there's other reasons, I don't know why, but anyways, if I look like I'm in slow motion, it's because my back's a little sore, but I'm going to go through this anyways, and the anointing of God breaks every yoke, right? Let me just do a little stretch here. That's actually a breakthrough because I couldn't do that last night really, so, there we go. Thank you, Lord. Okay. So this morning I was praying, and I feel like I have some directive for you, because I feel like it's kind of like a rededication service in a sense. And I'm going to explain that later on. But because I saw this picture of this broken chain link. And if you were here, part of our Voice series, and you know that we as a house, we believe that God wants us all to experience Him. And one of the ways that we experience God is through hearing and recognizing the voice of God. And so it's always important to tune your ear into what is God saying specifically. What does God want to get out of this morning? And I feel like for many of you might be that broken chain link. What do I mean by that? Maybe you're a victim of some form of betrayal. Maybe you're a victim of division, discord, jealousy. Maybe you're a victim, and it's caused you to isolate or disconnect yourself from relationship. Or maybe you're the one who broke relationship, and you know some broken chain links. And it's God's desire and design plan to unify us by reconciling us. We don't have to agree on every little thing, on have every little preference in line with each other, because that's not unity. But unity is be able to say, you know what, I may not agree with you, but I love you, and I'm able to worship in the same room as you. And that's important, right? How many hit your neighbor and say, thank God you love me? God's going to heal some broken chain links this morning. I want to speak this morning on the importance of looking out for each other and building healthy, consistent, long-lasting relationships. How many want some long-lasting relationships? Consistency is key, isn't it? For something to be long-lasting, you have to have perseverance, you got to have endurance, you got to have commitment, you got to have consistency, you got to be able to be consistent even when you're tempted not to be consistent. That's the only way you're going to build long-lasting relationships. We have to trust God, this is hard, in the people around us that God's put in our lives. How many know sometimes when it's hard, when you're going through something, and you feel like nobody else can relate to it, nobody else can connect to it. You're going through it, and somebody tries to give you advice, and you're like, your guards are up because, in your mind, you're like, you don't know what I'm going through. Well, let me just tell you that God in you knows what they're going through. And if you're on the recipient side, God in them knows what you're going through because God's also in you. So you have to trust as well, even though somebody may not be able to relate to you on every level, that if God's put them in your life, they are put there to be a support to you. And you got to trust God in them. We have to believe the best when people spread the worst. How many have a hard time with that one sometimes? We got to believe the best when people spread the worst. We got to really believe. That's what love is, isn't it? When somebody says a bad thing about your friend and they come to you and maybe your friend's not there and they come to you, they say, do you know what this guy's doing? And it's outside of the character of the friend that you believe that you know very well. And you're like, well, wait a minute. You don't just take and believe every bad report. I mean, our culture literally is infused with bad reports. Go to Shoppers Drug Mart. You buy, right before you're about to pay, it's like the eye gets caught on the latest, rumor or gossip wheel of Hollywood. And I mean, most of it's not even true, but yet so many people have an easier time believing the bad report before they do the good report. And we wonder why we're cynical when we get into church. Because our whole world, our whole life is infected with bad reports. See, love always chooses to believe the good report, the higher report. You see a bad report, whether it's true or not, in the papers, in the line of Shoppers Drug Mart, you have a choice. You could pray for that individual and bless that individual, or you can actually invest in the gossip wheel and go and tell your friends, did you hear what happened? Angelina Jolie just did this. I mean, who cares? What God cares about is, what are you doing about it? You can talk all you want, but what are you doing about it? What you can do is pray. That's what Jesus is doing. He's interceding for us all the time. He doesn't have time to look at the bad report because he sees you with your potential. He sees you in your healed condition. He sees you in your future. He sees what you could be, not what you are and what you were. He sees you totally redeemed. It's only a matter of time before you accept it. And you got to see like he sees. We got to believe the higher report. That's a good word. Shawn. Yes. How about this? We need to stand up versus standing down, fighting for each other when some may be giving up. Sometimes we got to take a hit for each other, don't we? How many have ever taken a hit for somebody? Like a real physical hit? A few. Jacques, wow, you're the man. You have. Awesome. You're the woman. We can take hits for each other sometimes. That's what loyalty looks like. Let me just give you a definition that I found, and it comes from a philosopher who wrote a book on the philosophy of loyalty. His name is Josiah Royce. And his 1908 book, I loved the definition that I read about it. I'm going to read it. He says this. He says, it's the heart of all the virtues, he says. The central duty amongst all the duties. The short definition that he gives of the idea of loyalty is the willing and practical and thoroughgoing devotion of a person to a cause. Loyalty is thoroughgoing in that it is not merely a casual interest, but a wholehearted commitment to a cause. Other definitions would describe loyalty as the faithfulness or the devotion to a person, country, group, or cause. How many know that every family has a cause? Has a purpose, has a people. Every family, every relationship, every person lives for something and dies for something, even if it's nothing. Every person on the planet. And we're created, God has created us perfectly in that we're created to walk out our purpose. We're created to fulfill the cause of God over our life. We're created to love one another, to have relationship with one another, and to do life and to do something incredible while we're here with each other. And it applies to this, the body of Christ. You can't escape the body of Christ. You cannot do spiritual life alone in your bedroom. You simply can't. That's why all over the world where churches are being persecuted, there's underground churches because they know their need for community. I mean, they could say, well, we're not allowed to meet legally. We're not allowed. We have to hide, so let's just do it in our bedroom. But that was never God's design plan. God's design plan would be that you'd gather as a family, as one unit with a purpose, with a cause, with the Godfather. doing family business. Proverbs 3, verse 3, let's go to there out of the Message. It says, don't lose your grip on love and loyalty. I love that. Because it's easy to lose your grip at times, isn't it? Go through a hard time. It's easy not to love when you don't feel love, right? Right? I don't feel the honeymoon stage of love anymore, so it's easy not to show in action love. We could just say, well, love is not an action. Well, love proves itself by its actions. Just like the Bible says, wisdom is proved by her offspring. That it has reproduction. Wisdom, when you're operating in wisdom, it produces result. So love produces something. It reproduces love. When you invest love, you receive love. And so, but there's times when we don't feel it, right? And then we don't feel it all of a sudden. We don't feel like being loyal. And maybe it's in our friendships, in our relationships. Maybe it's with our job. And you know, we start a new job. How many know they start a new job and all they want to do is impress their boss? Right? They're putting in extra time, and all of a sudden, they get a little familiar with their boss, get a little familiar with their coworkers, and then start, you know, just kind of slacking off a little bit, and then all of a sudden, the only time that they actually work really hard is when their boss is around. They started with love and loyalty, and then the honeymoon stage wore off, and all of a sudden now, when big boss man's not around, they're not doing anything. See, the writer here, Solomon, says, guys, don't lose your grip on love and loyalty. Don't lose it. Tie them around your neck. Carve their initials on your heart. Earn a reputation for living well in God's eyes and the eyes of the people. I love that. I love it. It's not just about, oh, God, I'm here to impress you. I'm here to impress you. I want to please you. It's also, God, I want to live well because I want to be an influence to the people. I want to earn a good report with you and with the people. I want to be blameless before you and the people. Because we have a cause, right? We have a mission. We have a purpose. With the people that God has put around and in our life, reputation always follows loyalty. Write that down. Reputation always follows loyalty. The test of someone's leadership is often their track record. Now, really, this whole message is a good leadership 101 message. Because in leadership, there is a bitter side and there is a sweet side. In any form of leadership position in life, where we all have the seed, the DNA of a leader at some level, in some capacity. And in every sense of the word, or every sense of life, every part of life, there's going to be opportunities where that leadership will be challenged, right? Because maybe you're going to break loyalty and love, or somebody that you've trusted is going to break loyalty and love, and all of a sudden you have a choice to continue to love or to let yourself become a victim of broken love and broken loyalty. We got to tie this around our neck. We have to understand the power of loyalty. You know, like I said a second ago, the test of someone's leadership is often viewed or perceived through their track record. If you want to know if somebody will be consistent or not, I'm not saying that God's not redeemable. I'm not saying that because God can redeem anything. God can change a life. We believe that. But oftentimes, history does repeat itself. Unless your life is set up differently than it was before, when you were living in habitual, you know, or doing habitual things and you had struggles, whatever, unless your life is set up differently in the next season, you probably will fall back into your history. That's not God's plan. That's not God's plan, not God's heart for you. But it's God's heart for you that you'd walk in wisdom in the next season. So you wouldn't let your history redefine you or pull you back to where you were. But often you can say to somebody, hey, you know, show me your track. That's why people want to see a resume, right? When you apply for a job, they want to see your track record. They want to see your consistencies, your strengths. They want to see your weaknesses. Where did you work? I want to get a reference, because your track record is very important for the future. Now, thank God for grace, because God forgets the bad track record. The Bible says he remembers your sin no more. As far as the east is from the west, you've been separated from sin, circumcised from sin. It's no longer connected to you. Thank God for that. But the reality of it is, people don't always see like that. So we have an opportunity to regain our reputation, not just to prove them wrong, but to prove God's grace true in our life. to prove that, okay, you know what? I did this before, and I'm not here to prove you wrong, but I will prove you wrong because I'll prove God's grace is good, and he's sufficient for me in my weakness, and he'll make me strong. And I will not repeat the same mistakes as my father, my mother, my grandmother, my grandfather, or anybody else around me, or my history. I'm a new creation. We have that opportunity, thank God. We have that opportunity. Reputation follows loyalty. If you can write this down, write it down. Loyalty is time-tested, circumstantially tested, and is emotionally tested. Because really, I mean, how do you really say, oh, this person is loyal? Well, really, time, right? Yeah. I mean, I make a covenant with my wife on my wedding day to love her in sickness and in health and all the other promises that we make in our vows. And you know, you do all these things, and really, you know, my loyalty is measured by how every day I continue to fulfill those vows, even if it's hard and I don't feel like it. I'm consistent. I'm committed. I'm focused. How many know what I'm talking about? It's challenging at times. It's time tested. It's circumstantially tested. So when the temptation actually is there, because you actually need now to love with those certain things going on. Now, it's like, okay, did you really mean what you said? Or how about emotionally tested? When all of a sudden you lose all emotional feeling towards a friendship, a job. How about a job? Because this applies to everybody in this room. You start off really well and you emotionally love it. You feel the hype and the emotion of the new job, and all of a sudden you get into the routine of the job and you kind of get stale, and that's when you're tested. Are you going to stay loyal to what God's called you to, or are you going to let your emotions rule you? Are you going to jump the ship? Are you going to jump ship? Are you going to walk the plank? Because emotionally, you just don't feel it anymore. How many of you know what I'm talking about? We have a whole generation that just doesn't feel it anymore. I just don't feel like getting up, so I got to call in sick to work. I broke a fingernail, so I can't work the cash register. You know, we are a generation of excuses. We're a culture of excuses. And we even have the opportunity. I mean, if you work for the government, you have the opportunity. You have so many sick days and so you have the opportunity to make up excuses. I'm not saying that's bad, but think about it. We're given the opportunity to live out of excuses constantly. It's very easy for us to make an excuse for why we do or do not do something. How many have had close friends in their life? Best friends. How many have had a friend for more than 20 years in this room? And they still have that friend. See, that to me is a sign of loyalty. When you could, I mean, and that friend that you've been friends with for 20 years, you know, you may have not seen them for a period of 5 years in that 20 years. So you may have not been around them every day like you were once at one point. But when you get back together again, you start off where you left off. See, that to me is time-tested loyalty. It's like, even though you're far apart, you're a world apart, you can be here and they can be in Australia or they can be around the world and you don't see them. Maybe you don't even Skype. But when they get home, it's like nothing changed. To me, that's a sign of real, genuine loyalty. It's the spirit of loyalty. To be able to say, you know what? Through thick and thin, no matter where you go, no matter where I am, I got your back, brother. I got your back, sister. I will always be there for you, watching out for you. That's this whole message is about this, because really this is the family business, you guys. This is about really establishing a healthy, unified, focused, with a purpose family. I know, in my BC days before Christ, everyone say before Christ, I had some really good friends that looked out for me. Friends that, if they had not looked out for me, maybe I would have not. I have very vivid memories of a few incidences, even where there were people that I didn't even know very well that really looked out for me. And there were times, because when I did stupid things, sometimes I became very overbearing. When I was under certain influences, very overbearing. So I would pick fights with everybody. I'm talking about everybody. And I remember I was in this club one time, and one of my good friends, he's a good friend, I still talk to him fairly regularly. I don't see him a lot, but he was one of my best friends in high school. I remember we were there, and he always had my back. This guy was like one of the most faithful individuals. He always had my back. And he was just super loyal. I mean, on every level. He helped us out. He helped me out on so many things and so many hard times. And I remember in this club specifically, now, so I'm minding my own business, and I have a certain look about myself, right? And, I had this is before I had like long dreadlocks, but, I've always had a little bit of an intense look according to the people, okay? I don't think I do, but according to people, right? My wife's like, I'm glad you have an intense look. I feel safe. That's what she says to me all the time. But I was in this club, and I'm just looking at a guy just fairly regular, like normally. I'm just looking at a guy. I'm looking at the people. I'm just whatever, right? And whatever was happening, and I was doing whatever I was doing, and it doesn't matter because it was a long time ago. But I was looking, and this guy flies off the handle. He's like, what? I mean, he starts like coming up to me, confronting me, and I'm like, well, I was confused. He's like, what's your problem, man? Like, what do you mean? Now I have a problem because I didn't have a problem before. Now you're saying, now I have a problem. And it was like a big deal. I mean, people stopped dancing. The music was still going. People stopped dancing. All of a sudden, a circle opened up. It was like something's about to go down, And I'm sitting there. I'm actually confused. I'm like highly confused right now. And I realized, oh my gosh, he thinks I was like mad at him probably or something. Like I was giving him an eye, like what, I wanted to fight him, right? So he wants to fight me. So I'm like, it caught me so off guard, but I was ready to go. I mean, I was ready to go. I felt like ready to go. You ever had those moments where it was like, I'm ready? Adrenaline, And my buddy steps in, knowing that I probably wasn't at a place to go, steps in and stands in front of me. Basically saying, I got your back, don't worry. And he begins to confront this guy, and they went at it. I didn't get to a physical altercation. I got very close. And I just remember thinking, man, that's what it looks like. I mean, I know that's an example in the world, but that's what it looks like when someone's got your back. They'll step in on behalf of you, take a hit for you. Whether you can take it or not, they'll step in. They'll stand up for you because they believe in you. They love you. There's a love. There's a loyalty. You've tied it around your neck. I remember at Mardi Gras, we used to take teams into Mardi Gras every year. For 7 years straight, and we saw incredible things. And I remember the first time we were there, I mean, gunshots were going off. We had to evacuate the street, and just like that kind of culture was going on at Mardi Gras. It's like one of the biggest parties in North America every year, and this is in New Orleans, and we were down there just ministering, loving on people on the street. It was awesome. Good things were happening. I remember maybe this is the third or fourth year, and I always led teams down there. So I think the biggest team that I brought down from Canada was about 28 to 30 people. Some of you might have been part of that. I know Joe was a part of that frequently, but Jason in the back. And we went down on this big bus, and I remember one of our leaders that I had brought down, that I had vouched for, because how it works is like, there's two leaders that kind of oversee a team of 15 to 30 people on the street. Then it's broken up into subgroups because, I mean, it can be dangerous. I mean, people can get lost. It just can be dangerous, And so girls and guys are always partnered up just so there's a safety because it's pretty crazy down there. And I remember this one time, this big, jacked up, 6'6", Black American looking dude is totally hammered. And I could see one of our guys, one of my leaders, and he's looking up. Okay, now, and I'm smaller than the guy. I'm smaller than the guy who's talking to this big dude, right? And I'm watching because I could sense that this could go really bad at any point. Do you remember this, Joe? Were you around? Did this happen in front of you? And this big guy is looking down on this guy, and he's like spitting on the guy because I mean, just like he's drunk. He's ready to pound this guy. I mean, to the ground. And all the guy wanted to do was just love on the guy. Talk about Jesus, pray for him, just love on him. And the guy was getting really upset to the point where now the guy picks up my friend by the shirt and holds him up. It's like, I don't even know what he was saying, but he was basically threatening him. So now I'm like, okay, so I'm the leader, right? So no matter how scared I am, I have to step in. Even if I'm freaking out, even if I'm smaller than the guy who's being picked up right now. So literally, I stepped in, and I just had this confidence in the spirit. And I stared right at him in the eyes, and I'm like, what's your beef? And I began to engage him, and I did not look anywhere else but his eyes. And I'm like literally David and Goliath. But I know I got the stone on the inside of me. It says rock named Jesus. I'm ready to throw the rock, I'm ready to, anyways. But I'm looking at him, and I just began, in confidence in Jesus, just began to redirect the conversation. And literally, he was like, he could have easily just knocked me out. And I would have been like KO'd, like KO'd, like comatose KO'd. This guy was that big, that jacked up, and also drunk, very drunk, right? So I just remember thinking, I got to step in. I got to have this guy's back. I got to step in. Because we have to have each other's back. If we say we love, if we say we're loyal, we got to make that loyalty look like something. We are all supposed to have each other's back, because you never know what's going to happen when you turn your back. You don't know what's going to happen. You see? That's what happens. Because Matt's got my back. That's what it looks like. No, that was planned, so thank you, Robert. Just so everybody knows this is a good man. He's not trying to tackle me. See, loyalty looks like something. Now he assured us that he was in rugby, so he could take a hit, okay? So don't worry about the insurance. It's all good. Having someone's back looks like something. Now, I want to give you 4 quick points on loyalty. So I want to encourage you to take notes, okay? Let's go. Let's dive into this. Number 1, loyalty has no conditions. Loyalty has no conditions. Let's take a commercial break. It's getting really hot in here. Thank you. Number 1, loyalty has no conditions. Let me ask you a question. Write this down if you're taking notes. Is loyalty something you give based upon conditions being met in your life? But it's funny because most of you said no, but the reality of it is sometimes when conditions aren't met, we're tempted to no longer be loyal. We're tempted just to kind of throw down the tie and say, you know what? I have every reason to justify why I should not be loyal. I know, and there are reasons, that go beyond just I'm loyal. There's physical elements, there's violent elements, there's all those different kinds of things. But, outside of all of that, we're called to be loyal. Let's look at Proverbs 17, verse 17 out of the Voice translation. It says this: a true friend loves regardless of the situation, and a real brother exists to share the tough times. I love that. Do you hear that? A true friend loves regardless of the situation. So, whatever you're going through, no matter how many conditions you break, I'm going to love you and I'm going to be loyal to you. And I exist to share in these hard times with you, because that's where our relationship really grows up and matures. I'm not going to just walk out every time you make a mistake, because if that was the case, imagine if God did that to you. None of us would have God in this room. And let me just tell you this: God will not ever leave you. Don't read the Old Testament and be like, well, why did David pray? Don't take your presence from me. Because in the Old Covenant, God was with the people. The New Covenant, God is in the people. And God promised us He'll never leave us nor forsake us. That's why it's a better covenant. So God's not going to leave you every time you got a bad thought or do something stupid. Cut somebody off on the highway. Road rage. God is not up there like, yeah, get him. He's not like that. But at the same time, He's not waiting to get out of the relationship. He's waiting to get in every day. He wants to get in. He wants to get in. Let me in. Let me in. I want to be with you more than you want to be with me in every part of your life. But I want you to see it that way. But first, you have to realize I'll never leave you, so you're stuck with me. You're stuck with me. A friend exists to share in the tough times. Now, unfortunately, let's apply it to the family, the church dynamics here. Often this is most neglected, because we can often get values confused with methodology and preference. What do I mean by that? Well, you can have a value of, integrity, or a value of of compassion or a value of some part of who you are that you just can't escape from. It's just who you are. It exudes from you. It's part of the culture of what you create in everyday life, whether it's family, business, or even church life. It has nothing to do with methodology, because listen, methodology will always change. Well, I come to church because I love the worship songs that we sing. But what about when the worship songs change? Because they're always changing. What about the day when the next generation's like, all I want to listen to is techno? Are you going to be open to adjust to techno worship? I mean, come on, there's, you guys. Yeah, that's right. Come on. DJ Legit, right? You guys got to be open. Listen, change is inevitable. If you do not change, you will be like every religious guy Jesus ever rebuked. Oh, that's a hard one. I know. For all of us, me too, because I don't want to change sometimes. Some of you have a hard time changing your underwear. You need to change. I get away with a lot here, so if you're new here. But let me just say this, that don't get methodology and preference confused with values. As long as you share the same values, you guys, as family, your family may change locations. You may have to move across the world as a 7-year-old because your dad gets reposted somewhere else. Or are you going to all of a sudden say, I don't want to be a part of your family because the method, the place that we meet geographically, it's changing. I don't like that. See, if you think that way, you're going to miss it. Every time. You're going to miss real family. Because real family is not about style. It's not about preference. It's about sharing the same values. So don't get your eyes and put conditions on, okay, well, if they meet this criteria, if they sing this worship song, if he speaks like this, if he wears a suit, 7-piece suit on Sunday, I'm going to come. All these different things, like, don't get your eyes on that. Get your eyes on God and what he's doing. And I'm telling you, you will adjust to every change that God wants to do, and that religious devil will not take you out. I've seen it over and over and over again. Real friends and their loyalty come forth in the midst of hard times. Let's read this. I love this. I want to stay here. 2 Samuel 23, verse 8 to 10. David was one of the greatest kings that ever lived, if not the, according to Scripture, the greatest king. David, a man after God's own heart. He had his failures. He admitted them, walked through restoration. Yeah, he had his failures, and as a result of some of the things that he did, he was not the one who built the temple that he had the heart to build. His son Solomon did. But King David was incredible role model and example, and even an example and typified Christ in the new covenant in many different ways in his life. And you can read about David in the Old Testament. But it says here in verse 8, speaking of David having an incredible mafia on his side. Literally, David had what the Bible calls the mightiest of warriors. I mean, these guys were like 300 style and better, okay? The mightiest of warriors. I mean, their steroids were like, they were jacked up on Jesus juice. That's what they were. They were like, you know, and they understood their call. They understood that they were called to be loyal to the king, David. Verse 8, these are the names of David's mightiest warriors. The first was Jashobeam, the Hakmonite, who was the leader of the three. So David, it's funny because Jesus also had his three. He had his Peter, James, and John. He had his 12, one of them betrayed him, but then he had his three, Peter, James, and John. Then he also had his one, who's John. John was the beloved. John was the one that seemed to be closest to Jesus. But David had also his three. He also had his one too, Jonathan. But David had his three. It says that he had three. Now, there were three specific people out of the 30, which really was 37, that the Bible calls the mightiest of warriors. These guys could do crazy things. This is not a fairy tale, you guys. This is like what happens when you're jacked up with Jesus juice. You can do anything. They were in the field taking hits of Jesus juice. They were just like, they really were. I mean, like, they knew Jesus was their strength. Right? Come on. That I can do all things through Christ who gives me the strength to do all things. They knew that. The first was Jashobeam the Hakmonite, who was the leader of the three mightiest warriors among David's men. He once used the spear to kill 800, do you hear that? 800 enemy warriors in a single battle. I mean, that just makes a statement. David, I got your back, man. I'll take 800 of these guys out by myself. Some of you, I don't believe it. Well, believe it. It happened. It's true. Verse 9, this is what I want to focus on. Next in rank among the three was Eleazar, son of, in some translations, it's actually Dodo. Everyone say, or Dudu, Dodo, Dode. Say it different ways. Son of Dode, Dodo, Dudu. A descendant of Aho, once Eleazar and David, listen to this. Eleazar and David stood together against the Philistines, okay, when the entire Israelite army had fled. Pause there. That's loyalty. Listen, the Philistines show up. There's a confrontation. David and Eleazar are the only two standing. The rest of the army fled. Betrayal, divided loyalty, fear got in. I don't think it's wise. I don't trust you as a leader anymore. I don't think you can do this. So I'm jumping ship. I'm walking the plank. Well, for David, it was very good for him to see that, to know who were the ones that were loyal and who were the ones that were not loyal. Who were the ones that were loyal based upon conditions and it being met, and who were the ones that really are truly loyal. So David and this guy, Eleazar, stand side by side. They're the only two left. And he's like, bro, I got your back. Don't worry. We'll take these guys out. It says this in verse 10. He killed Philistines. Listen to this. This guy, this Eleazar guy, killed Philistines until his hand was too tired to lift his sword. And the Lord gave him, and some translations says actually it was wielded to his sword. Like his hand was holding his sword so much he couldn't let go of his sword anymore. And the Lord gave him a great victory that day. And then watch this. So after the victory, then the rest of the army did return until it was time to collect the plunder. So now everybody wants the produce, the gold, the silver, the fruit of the victory. But they didn't pay the price of loyalty to get the plunder. Now, how many know people like that? Come running back when all of a sudden things start going really well. Now I want to eat of all your fruit, but I wasn't loyal in the battle. Because the better eating comes when you've paid the price to eat. Because you can appreciate it. You'll better be able to appreciate something when you pay the price for it. Somebody can buy you a $1,000 meal, but when you have to pay $1,000 for a meal, you will eat every single thing on that plate. Even if you are full. Right? You appreciate it. The rest of the army did not return until it was time to collect the plunder. So loyalty has no conditions, but loyalty also, number two, has no ulterior motive. Has no ulterior motive, has no agenda other than being consistently loyal and trustworthy. Let me ask you a question. Should loyalty be given in measure? What do I mean by that? Should it be given where it's comfortable? Where it actually feeds you, it gives you something, and then where it doesn't give you anything, so you're not loyal in this area, but you're loyal in this area. No, loyalty is just loyalty. And Solomon said, tie love and loyalty around your neck. Don't lose your grip on it in every area of life, because if you do this, you'll earn a good reputation with God and with people. When people look at you, do they see consistency? Do they see love and loyalty? There's no agenda. Matthew 24, verse 45 to 47. I love this. Out of the Message, it says this: who here qualifies for the job of overseeing the kitchen? A person the master can depend on to feed the workers on time each day. Someone the master can drop in on unannounced and always find him doing his job. Because often, sometimes our ulterior motive is to impress. I want to make sure the boss sees me working, because I want him to promote me. But when he's not around, I'm not going to do the same thing that I was doing a second ago. That's kind of the way we are with God, right? Sunday morning. Sometimes, right? So we leave Sunday morning and we feel good, but then we just kind of disconnect from God during the week. So it looks like we're part of the experience, but really one time a week, but really during the week we're just disconnected. See, loyalty looks like consistency every day. I know that we're going to make mistakes. No condemnation. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to screw up. But as long as we get up, we're on the right path. As long as we get up and we apply God's grace and love to our situation, God is all good. God is not feeling good when you've given up on life. When you become the victim, God's like, you may feel like the victim, but I've called you to be a victor, so get up and start walking again. And if you do that, it's all good, man. And I'm going to help you. I'm going to guide you. I'm going to strengthen you. It says here, a God-blessed man or woman, I tell you. So he's actually saying, well, who does all these things is a God-blessed man or woman. It won't be long before the master will put his person in charge of the whole operation. If you want to be in charge of the whole operation, you want to be the big boss man of whatever you're doing, listen, loyalty and love need to be a part of your life. Let it be the culture that you exude in every area. It's funny because like I said, it's not something that loyalty, you don't just turn it on or off. And people who turn it on or off, usually because they have an ulterior motive, right? So in one moment they want to, there's a reason for why they do it, but not really a genuine reason why they do it. And listen, I'm not trying to make you feel bad because we all have areas of struggle like this. Whether it's our relationship with God or our spouse or friends, co-workers, managers that are over us, leaders in our life. We always have areas of temptation, but as long as we overcome, that's God's heart for you, is to overcome, because it makes you stronger. It makes loyalty become a part of who you really are, not who you just want to be. Did you hear that? Because you can want to be something, but when you are that something, everybody else wants to be that something. And it's funny because in ministry, it's kind of what takes place a lot, actually. I mean, I can't tell you the number of people like that I first meet that will come in, and they'll usually, what they'll do is they'll give me their resume of all the things that they do, the ministries that they've been involved with, their leadership track record, they do this, their title this, they know that, and that's not bad, but then they follow it up with saying, and this is where it kind of gets, okay, well, let's see, like, can I serve you personally? And my first question is, well, why don't you just come hang out at the church first? Because the thing is, it seems as though everybody wants to know the leader. Now, I'm not trying to be arrogant here, but that's just the reality of anything you do in life in leadership. Everyone wants the association, right? I want to know the Hollywood celebrity. I want to know this leader, that leader. Everybody wants to know and be associated. So when someone says it to me, I'm okay. Well, let's just see. Maybe I'll meet with you at some point, but I don't have time to meet with everybody. So maybe why don't you start by just showing up at culture night? Why don't you start by just coming consistently on Sunday mornings? Because that's the thing, that's where the heart begins to be tested. Well, I don't want to do those things because there's an ulterior motive, right? I want, but you don't need me. You may need somebody else. You don't need me. You think you need me, but you may not need me. You hear my heart, right? Ulterior motives can easily come into the church. But you see, David's mighty men had undivided loyalty. Undivided. It was heartfelt loyalty. You can read it, 1 Chronicles 12, verse 33. And these guys had David's back. Number 3, loyalty has no condition. Loyalty has no ulterior motive. And loyalty has no doubts. Go to 1 Corinthians 13, verse 7. Love bears up under anything and everything that comes, is ever ready to believe the best of every person. Oh, I love that. What a challenge, isn't it? Because this is like the rumor mill of the church, the rumor mill of business, rumor mill of Hollywood, whatever. We can believe the higher report, we can believe the best, or we can become a doubter and believe the worst. But love, right? Believes the best. It says this, its hopes are fadeless under all circumstances, and it endures everything without weakening. Loyalty has no doubts. You know, I really, there's one specific celebrity that I am somewhat connected to, and the world is just like always chastising this individual. And I get to have firsthand information from somebody very close to them. And it's funny because when you hear for the purpose of prayer, to pray, when you hear these reports on TV, on the news, or on some form of social media or website, often it's so disgustingly skewed to the point where, like, it's scary to the point of how many people just believe lies their whole life and don't even realize they're believing lies. And it's sad. When you hear the higher report, the true report, and you start hearing those higher and truer reports more and more, it's easier to believe the best even when life tries to give you the worst, or all of a sudden you have temptation to doubt in somebody, to not believe in the best in somebody. I have a really close friend, leader in the city. It's funny, this was awesome example. I have this close friend, very, very close to me. And I was out with a bunch of other leaders one day, and I had just met this other leader, okay? I'd never known him before. I think I'd heard about him, but never really talked to him. We were talking, and there was about 4 or 5 of us in this. We were hanging out. We were doing some stuff, and all of a sudden, this guy says out loud, "Do you know?" Starts talking about this leader, who was the best man in my wedding. Okay, so first of all, that is like, this is gonna go really bad in a second once you finish your sentence. Because loyalty has someone's back, right? So he's talking, and he's trashing this leader, saying things that are totally, totally not even true, that I know for a fact are not even true. And in the same sentence, he was also saying, you know what, but you know, I don't like talking bad about people until I talk to them. So I stopped and said, so have you talked to this person? I didn't tell him at that point I knew who he was. And he said, well, no. I said, well, where are you getting all this information? He's like, well, such and such, and so and so. But have you ever talked to the person? Well, no. But you just said you believe in the value of always confronting the person. So then I said, oh, by the way, he's actually my best friend. And he was in my wedding as my best man, and I was in his wedding as his best man, and I've known him since he was 4 years old. So you better be careful, because I got his back. So you better meet with him if you have an issue. And shut your trap. Sorry to be so harsh, but listen, when you're loyal, you stand up to fight, you guys. Because you take it. When you have love and you have loyalty. Now, I want to just commend, I know lots of people in here I could say this about, but Young and Son, Joe and Jess, have been some of the most loyal people that I've ever met in my entire life. I mean, there's more in this house that I can talk about it for hours, but I wanted to say Joe, has been through it all with me. Young and Son have been through so much, and one of the things that I would say about both of them that is a true value in their life is love and loyalty. I mean, they wear it on their neck, you guys. They wear it on their neck. They have taken hits for me. Joe's been taking hits for me for 10 years. Because most people, when they have an issue with me, they go to Joe. And they, boom, 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 right? Now, I gotta be careful. I don't want to vent on you guys. I don't want to vomit on you guys, but it happens. It's just life, right? It's just life. My last point, number 4, loyalty has no regrets. Write that down. Loyalty has no regrets. Is loyalty given with fear and or regret? Absolutely not. Let's look at 2 Samuel 23, verse 13 to 17, continuing on about David's mighty men, okay? 2 Samuel 23, verse 13 to 17. It says this. Once during the harvest, when David was at the cave of Adullam, the Philistine army was camped in the valley of Rephaim. The 3 the mighty three, who were among the 30, an elite group amongst David's fighting men. These were like the born identity guys of David's army, okay? They were like the trained CIA, Secret Service agents, okay? Went down to meet him there, verse 14. David was staying in the stronghold at the time, and a Philistine detachment had occupied the town of Bethlehem. Verse 15. David remarked longingly to his men, "Oh, how I would love some of that good water from the well by the gate in Bethlehem." So the three, these born identity CIA Secret Service agents of David's mighty men, went to the Philistine lines, drew some water from the well by the gate in Bethlehem, and brought it back to David. In other words, they risked their life for some water. Come on, that's like an extreme, isn't it? They risked their life for some water. What would you do? Your wife's 9 months pregnant. Oh, how I long for a bar of 80% organic dark chocolate that is only found in Switzerland. And you have to fly and leave right now to get there in a day and come back in two more days so I can have that. How far would you go for someone with love and loyalty on your neck? How far would you go? How many husbands in the house have driven across the city for something their pregnant wife ever needed? Only a few of you. We need some more men's ministry in the house. Only a few of you. Jacques, Joe, that's it. Some people are waving. So the three broke out. They got this water back to David, and it says this, but David refused to drink it. Instead, he poured it out as an offering to the Lord. The Lord forbid that I should drink this, he exclaimed. This water is as precious as the blood of these men who risked their lives to bring it to me. So David did not drink it. These are the examples of the exploits of the three. Let me tell you this. Write this down. The highest level of loyalty is proven by the sacrifice it makes when it's most inconvenient. I'll say it again. The highest level of loyalty is truly proven by the sacrifice it makes when it's most inconvenient. Marriage, new job, church commitments, community commitments, children commitments. All of a sudden now your sacrifice is measured. How many can say right now you know a few people that have paid a big sacrifice to show you their loyalty? I can list a lot of names. How many can list some names? You may be sitting beside them in this room right now, in front of them, behind them. Let me just tell you this. God so loved you that he sent his son to so give his life for you, to prove to you that he would always be loyal to you. That if he could give the most precious thing up for a relationship with you, he could do it. Why? Because he had love and loyalty around his neck. He didn't lose his grip on it. When he was going through the pain of the beating, the nails going into his wrists, the nails going into his feet, the spear going into all the things that were happening to him carrying a 180-pound cross up on a hill, being mocked, being spit on. The whole time he had his grip on love and loyalty because he knew he had to love you with his life and be loyal to you with his life. And nothing was going to stop him because he so wanted a relationship with you. See, loyalty in his life in that moment had no regret because he knew that by doing what he had to do, he would get to be with you. He would get to have a relationship with you. Loyalty has no regret because love has no regret.